They asked me to prepare a speech, and since, there we go. Jonathan, thank you for your support. What a character. Anyway, we're here to take a look at some transactions and to award a group for a transaction that was done in 2016. We use this forum to highlight two selected transactions that we feel as a CCIM organization were very demonstrative of the skills that are necessary to do a transaction today and that are learned through CCIM and our education and our networking process. But before that, first Kevin would like to come up and recognize the power partners that we have that make these events and this year possible. Kevin?
Thank you, Mark. I'm Kevin Reed. I'm the 2016 chapter president on the CCIM. I have the great opportunity to thank a group of people that without their support and their involvement with our organization, we wouldn't be what we are today. And those are our power partners. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize each one of them. First off is Bluestone and Hockley. Is Cliff Hockley here by chance? Anybody from their organization here? So Bluestone and Hockley, they're a property management and residential, commercial, and community management company. They just came on this year, and we're hoping to make sure that in 2017 we bring them back to be a sponsor again. We have CoStar. CoStar is just a new partner also, and they do a lot of MLS, commercial property, marketing, like LoopNet, CoStar. They're one of the same company. Do we have any? Is Ryan Good here by chance? So we'll look forward to their sponsorship in 2017 also. We have Fitzpatrick Painting. They're the most recent of our new power partners. They just came on here this last month. Fitzpatrick Painting and Construction is a full-service painting and construction company specializing in commercial, residential, HOA, and assisted living facilities, interior and exterior repaints. Our construction division performs jobs ranging in size from small dry rot repairs to tenant improvements to large-scale remodels. They've been in business since 1994. Thank you, Fitzpatrick. We have Pacific Continental Bank. Provides unique expertise in banking services to community-based businesses, nonprofit organizations, and professional service providers. Our construction lending process is known for its efficiencies and excellent customer service to both our borrowers and their contractors. As a community bank headquartered in Oregon, we understand the challenges and opportunities our clients face in local markets. We work hard to help you succeed. Is Desiree Robinson here by chance? Sorry. Thank you, Desiree. Thank you, Pacific Continental Bank. Summit Cleaning and Restoration, clean, build, and restore, routine facility services, emergency cleaning and restoration, post-construction cleaning. Would you like to stand up? Would you like to say a couple words? With your mouth full of food. I did that on purpose, you know that.
We have a big mixed-use post-construction cleaning in Southeast right now, Loca and Goat Blocks. If any of you are familiar with that, big project there off Belmont. So we specialize in doing really large-scale post-construction, white glove, final cleanings. And then the emergency cleaning and restoration. Lately, we've been doing a lot in hotels and senior living are kind of the two big markets we operate in. So.
Thank you. Thank you for your sponsorship. Bedford's cost segregation. What would we be without Jonathan Frizzell? Bedford is an independent professional services firm specializing in cost segregation and innovative tax, finance, and energy solutions for the commercial real estate industry. Jonathan's been a staunch advocate of ours for many years now, and I consider him to be a close personal friend, and we're really fortunate as an organization to have him as a member. Thank you. Silverman Studios, video production and marketing, agent profile videos, aerial and property videos, testimonial videos, social engagement, silvermanstudios.com. He has done an absolutely phenomenal job of videoing all our meetings, and so that we were able to post them onto Facebook. So for those CCIMs that are really far away at the other ends of the state, they still have access to see what's been going on as far as opportunities within our organization and what's going on within the marketplace. So Jeff, thank you so very much. We have Rathbone, Barton, and Olson. Connie Rathbone has been
She's not able to get here today.
Well, I'll let you take a bow for her then, Fred, please. Stand up, please, Fred. It's all Fred's fault that we have Connie, so thank you, Fred. Connie's been an active member of CCIM for a long, long time, and we really value her participation in our organization. David Moore, Equity Advantage. What can I say except David has been not only a close personal friend also, but he has been a real advocate and a real asset to this organization and many of the members who have done deals with him. And he continues to help us in many, many ways. As the market changes, he keeps us surprised as to what those changes look like. And he's always got a solution to the problems that we might be facing. So thank you, David Moore. AM Capital Sources, Creative Finance Specialist. All Capital Sources is a boutique capital advisory firm located in Southwest Washington. They specialize in commercial real estate financing and work with all asset types and classes. Small business loans up to $1 million, SBA small business loans available, assistance and due diligence. No upfront fees, nationwide. Let us do the shopping for you. You can focus on building your portfolio and other acquisitions. Andrew, Andrew, would you like to say a couple words?
Yeah. Hi.
That's one word.
Yeah. Anyway, pleased to be here, and thank you very much for the recognition.
Thank you, Andrew. SBA Lending, Jess Richardson. Jess was one of the first people I met when I first started CCIM, and I was working for Bob and Renee Nelson, and he took me under his wing, and he treated me. He made me feel like $1 million. And when he brought Jessica on board, so he knew how difficult it was for me to remember names. He wanted to make sure that I didn't forget her name. So he brought the right person on board. So we're ready to take advantage of Jessica, but we can't tell you how much we appreciate all you did for us, Jess. You're just absolutely a phenomenal human being, and we really appreciate your membership and your service to this organization. Thank you. Maul Foster Longue. Maul Foster Longue is an integrated multidisciplinary environmental consulting company. We specialize in Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental site assessment, prospective purchaser agreements, and brownfield redevelopment. We act with a sense of urgency because our clients' success is how we measure our success. Jim Mull isn't here, but Seth Otto is, and we have Seth Otto. We're going to be working Seth to death now that we've gotten him on our board. I do a lot of work with Jim and their company, and I have to tell you, they've really taken the fear out of dealing with environmentally challenged properties to the point where I feel very, very comfortable. There isn't any situation I could get involved in that I don't have they don't have my back. And so they're deal makers, they're not deal breakers. They want to get you to the promised land, and so we're really, really fortunate to have you guys as our members and support our team here. Banner Bank. Banner Bank has been connected to the Pacific Northwest since they opened in 1890. We are all well capitalized, headquartered in the region and dedicated to financing needs of the commercial real estate community. Is Darcy Norby here? There's an inside joke there. Okay, local lending decisions for business. Isaac Grant. Isaac Grant is probably the most well-spoken banker I've ever met in my entire life. So Isaac, would you like to stand up and say a few words?
Sure, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, pleasure to be a part of this chapter, looking forward to 2017. We, local credit union lender, been in the Lane County area since 1949, but we cover all of Oregon. We can lend into Washington up to Seattle into Northern California, some parts of Idaho as well. So we have some aggressive goals for 2017. We have money to lend, so please remember us for your commercial financing needs.
And I'd like to point out that Isaac has got some pipes. I saw him singing on stage, and the guy has got skills. So thank you, Isaac. Amerititle, local knowledge, regional leader, world-class service. We take great pride in maintaining the highest level of professionalism while nurturing long-standing relationships and strong community ties. Who's here? Do we have someone here? Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brad Moore with Amerititle, and I just want to thank everyone that has used our title and escrow services. We appreciate that, and those of you that haven't, please give us a try.
Well, Brad, you know, we're coming up with some new plans for 2017. We're definitely going to be dragging you into all of that, so be prepared.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
William Castor is a law firm with offices in Portland and around the Pacific Northwest. We have skilled and knowledgeable lawyers to help you with your real estate needs. Is Tom Pett here by chance? Thank you, Williams Castor. All roads lead to Tycor Title. Tycor Title serving Portland, Oregon since 1908. Is Cheryl Summers here? Cheryl, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. We are a national title company. We close commercial, residential 1031s, and we appreciate our sponsorship here, getting into the relationships here, and looking forward to 2017.
Well, and as I told Brad, Cheryl, we definitely got some plans for you, so get your hip waders on. We're going to have some fun this next year. Thank you so very much for your support. James Brown. James Brown and Associates has over 30 years of experience helping our clients identify, characterize, and resolve environmental liabilities in a timely, cost-effective manner. We facilitate clients selling and acquiring contaminated properties while minimizing ongoing environmental liability. Through appropriate Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental site assessments, directed, cost-efficient remedial actions, and negotiating prospective purchaser agreements with regulatory agencies. And again, Jim, like Mal Foster, I've worked with very, very closely on several different projects, and I have to tell you, he's one of the most highly respected environmental attorneys in the entire West Coast. So we're really fortunate to have him as one of our partners. Alliance Insurance Group. Alliance exceeds common expectations of what a brokerage firm can offer. We're business consultants, partners, and advocates who provide forward-thinking solutions. Our services include property and liability insurance, risk management, claims resolution, litigation management, workers' compensation, and health benefits. Your one-stop shop for all your insurance needs. Is Ken Leatherman here by chance?
Ken Leatherman's is stuck in Eugene, Oregon. I would like Matthew to do a quick little.
Well, let me say a couple words about Ken Leatherman.
Matthew will be after you.
Yeah, Ken and I were on a project together where we were working with the Emergency Management Preparedness Organization. They just had a huge conference over at the Convention Center here in Portland. And I have to tell you, he's probably one of the most well-read, great speakers I've ever met. He's got a skill about him, but he's very knowledgeable about leadership and what leadership means. And so it isn't just his ability to represent his company, but his ability to just represent what it means to be a good human being. And so I'm really, really happy that I've gotten to know him even better over this last year, because he has more skills than I could possibly imagine. And I'm finding out that I really would like to tap him as a resource for this organization that goes above and beyond just this insurance company that he represents. So Matthew, would you like to say a few words?
I'm not sure how to follow that up, but Matthew Concert, CCIM, I'm your current past president, and I know what you're going through, Kevin, and hope you have a good year off next year. Ken Leatherman, to give you an idea, I've had an opportunity to transact with a number of our vendors here in this room, and just really pleased and appreciate your sponsorship. We just moved all of our insurance business to Ken Leatherman, and the reason for that is I would compare him to others, and that Ken is truly varsity when it comes to insurance. There's a big difference. So our family moved our entire portfolio of insurances, including health insurance, to Ken's Alliance Group. So there's my testimony for Ken.
Thank you, Matthew. Earthquake Tech, is Steve Gemmel here? They're also a fairly new power partner that we've just brought on. We're looking forward to their relationship with us in 2017 also. So thank you, Steve Gemmel. Stoller Family Estates, James Falvey. At Stoller, our roots are run deep. The family established the property in 1943 and the vineyard 50 years later. Today, we are the largest continuous vineyard in Oregon, Dundee Hills, and our fruit is 100% estate grown. Is there someone here from Stoller? We certainly like what they produce. So that's it. I want to say from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate these power partners, because I've been able to go to them and ask them for their help in helping me grow my business, but also to grow as a human being. And we're really fortunate to have these kind of professionals supporting this organization, because without their support, we really wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today. It takes, you know, they say it takes a village to raise a family. Well, it takes a much bigger village to raise a broker. So with saying that, they allow us the opportunity to build a solid team of professionals that really are guaranteeing us an opportunity for success. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So Mark?
Thank you, Kevin. Following, I guess, a new tradition, this is going to be an off-prompter presentation. So I'm not sure exactly where I'm at with this, but we're going to move forward. I think what we want to do is talk about what is a CCIM. First, commercial real estate has changed in the last 40 years. Some of you have been in it that long, some of you haven't. In the 1970s, when I started, real estate decisions were made basically from local experience, from longevity in a given market. You had local banks, you had local investors, local tenants primarily. They were all driving commercial real estate investments, at least when I was starting in Southern California. And so local market knowledge was coveted at that time, and a lot of times it was squirreled away and held close to, you know, your vest pocket. But 40 years later, successful commercial investment real estate is a science, and it's taking into account factors like regional demographic analysis, customer psychology, segmentation and buying trends, drive time analysis, local location analysis, credit tenant worthiness, building operation analysis, interest rate and cap rate creep, and other influencing decisions, and a lot by out-of-area investors now, out-of-area decision makers, influencers, and capital sources. So either you learn about all of these different things and many more through trial and error, which sometimes can bring lawsuits or failure, or you get educated and you educate yourself. And I learned a long time ago in the early 1990s that the CCIM Institute is recognized worldwide as being one of the best platforms for getting your education and then also staying current in our industry. So what is a CCIM? A CCIM is a designation, and it's a certified commercial investment member. We're experts, recognized as experts in disciplines of commercial investment real estate, and that expertise comes from learning a lot about our industry through our power partners, for example, also through doing transactions, through education programs that CCIM initiated a long time ago, but updates and adds to our opportunity. And then we also take exams after taking courses, and then there's a final exam after that. And so a commercial investment member, CCIM, is a designation like a CPA or like a CFP, an MAI, or something like that. And there are only 13,000 CCIMs in the world today out of 220,000 practicing commercial real estate brokers throughout the world. That's only 6% of all the people that are practicing are CCIM designees. So we are able to keep up with the changing industry through state-of-the-art technologies, best practices that we have access to through CCIM. There are some companies that provide these same type of programs. I was involved with CB Richard Ellis, still am, as an affiliate. And they did a lot of it in-house, but you did it their way. It was restricted in some extents, and you did it CBRE's way, or you didn't do it at all. With the CCIM Institute, we were able to take best practices from CBRE, who has people that are there, and through other organizations that are members, and they're bringing best practices to CCIM, and CCIM is able to share those with a lot of other people that wouldn't have access to those platforms. So CCIMs must be proficient in investment analysis, market analysis, user decision analysis, and financial analysis. And so based on those practices, we have 2 transactions. For our transaction of the year, we have 2 examples. They are sophisticated real estate transactions. We're going to have the individuals that participate in those transactions come up here if they would. Each one of them is going to give a presentation on their transaction, and the first one is Bill Younce and Craig Johnson.
Alrighty, this transaction started, I guess I'll kind of run through a couple of the essential parts first. This was a referral that actually came through our affiliation in the CCIM chapter. And the building is it's a 35,000 square foot building, 4 stories, built on, built in 2 phases, one phase in 1921, one phase in the 40s. And interestingly enough, the 4th floor was never actually finished when it was built. Our client is a organization that trains people from various cultures on how to operate in other cultures. And it's actually a Christian ministry, and they acquired this building in the mid-90s to really further their ministry. So their business model worked. They would bring people in from all over the world. They could house them in the building, and they would also conduct classes and educate them in how to operate effectively in other cultures. This was particularly like training for missionaries and folks that were going to work in lands different than with the lands that they were raised in. And so that was their thing, and they were working along. They were working along, doing great work. 2011 or 2001 rolls along. 9/11 happened. Suddenly, it's much harder to get a visa to come in the United States to study like this. And they started adapting by doing online training and things like that. Fast forward, we get to 2014, and they're asking themselves, you know, first of all, the building is becoming a little bit more difficult to manage. They operated on a very tight budget. And so a couple of things. In fact, the way they kept the building up was through volunteer labor. They bring people in. Well, volunteer labor generally is not skilled labor. So for easy things, that's not a problem, you know, painting and stuff like that, fixing drywall. But they were looking at down the road, facing some pretty hefty capital expenditures that they were frankly not going to be prepared for. And then the second thing is with the way their ministry was changing, being able to teach people using the latest tools on the web, such as video cams and online seminars and things like that, it wasn't necessary to bring people here like it had been in the past. In fact, it had been since 2001, it had been incredibly difficult to bring people here because of challenges with visas and allowing foreign persons in here. So when they approached us, they basically said, look, we are trying to figure out what we want to do with our organization and how that building fits into it. So we want you to help us value the building and then talk about what you think the highest and best use would be. And we looked at a couple things. We kind of created a little pro forma and said, okay, we think that the highest and best use would be if this was redeveloped as apartments. And of course, in 2014, as is today, there was apartment mania in Portland, and it was moving out from the core, and this was right in the path of progress. And we just saw a big potential market for that. And so we kind of said, okay, we think, and then we also brought some developers to walk through, kind of help us get an idea, what do we be looking at cost and just get some rough numbers. So we kind of created this pro forma, and because we didn't know what the plan would actually look like, we kind of created it was a pretty wide range of what potential value is. And they said, okay, and they said, well, if we stayed here, you know, what would that look like? You know, and if we wanted to unlock capital, we said, okay, you could do a sale leaseback, but this is the kind of rent you'd have to bring in to bring this kind of number. And they looked at that and said, that isn't going to happen. You know, so, but anyway, we went through this process with them of helping them define what they wanted to do, and they finally came to the conclusion they wanted to split their ministry. They wanted to get out of the whole, business of creating housing for people. That was just really dragging down, you know, their talent was in this other ministry, and doing the housing thing was really getting in the way of that. But the problem was that's where their revenue came to support the ministry. So basically, we came to the conclusion that if they were to unlock the capital by selling this asset, that would give them time to get their ministry going to a level where that it could support itself. And they would be out of the housing thing, and they would be spending their time and energy doing that. So that was the process to get to that, with a lot of consultation with Bill and I and with their board. Then we went on to market, and in fact we presented this at the CCIM meeting. I think some of you probably remember the property. We immediately had like 4 offers. This is the first time Bill and I have done tours where we had like 4 parties on the tour simultaneously, you know, going through the building. So that was pretty interesting. So there was a lot of, so that was all really cool. We got a couple of we had 4 offers, I think, out of the chute, and we narrowed it down to one party that we felt had the best experience to get this deal done. They were an experienced rehab developer. They'd done projects in the Pearl. They'd also done projects. Their projects really specialized in like micro lofts and very small units. They really had expertise in that. We felt that would be useful because this building was laid out as a combination of things like dorm rooms. It had sleeping rooms. It had small apartments. It had a wide range of, and as well as had a lot of common area. It had study areas. It had a commercial kitchen. It had a dining room. So it was a very unique property, and it was going to take quite a bit of adaptation to make this a good property in the private sector, so to speak. So we started out on our way. We went under contract with this party, and then we realized, we knew that zoning could potentially be a problem because the property was zoned in the 80s by the city of Portland for single-family residential, even though it had this building on it. I think it was clearly a case of somebody not, you know, looking at a map and not going out and looking at the property. Should never have been zoned that way. And we talked with the city, and the buyer said, we'll close on this, but we have to have the zone change done first. We'll do our due diligence. So it's going to do a quick due diligence and an all-cash close. That kind of went out the window. And Bill, you want to talk a little bit about the zoning thing?
Sure. Well, as you all know, being CCIMs, the value of properties is based upon your bundle of rights. And we thought we had a full bundle on this property. You know, we did have some government limitations with the zoning and whatnot, but we had preliminarily met with the city planning department, and one of the chief planners down there told us that they were doing the comprehensive rezoning for the whole central east side, and that their target for the rezoning on this property was an R2 zone, which would allow multifamily. So we felt pretty smug in terms of what somebody could do with this property. But we ran into a little snag on it. When we accepted the offer, these guys had done some phenomenal redevelopment work with similar type properties, but they didn't have to go through the zoning situation. With this situation, we took them, met with the planner. She basically told them the same thing that she told us, and she encouraged us basically to go through a rezoning conference. The only problem is Worldview didn't really have the money to hire a consultant to do this. So we had to finagle a loan from the buyer to the seller basically to fund the consultant to do the zone change. And so the consultant was very encouraging. He said, you know, this looks like a slam dunk. You know, we just have to present things in a logical manner. You know, there's all kinds of arguments for doing this. You know, the city needs housing and whatnot. So we had the zoning conference down at the city building right after Christmas in 2014. And I have this date on my calendar memory. This is a holiday massacre. When we met, all the bureaus basically were sitting around the table.
Pre-application conference.
Pre-application conference. Craig and I were over in the corner, you know, watching the whole thing proceed. And systematically, all the bureau chiefs basically, you know, were arguing why this wasn't feasible. And then the planners basically said, you know, the last 3 projects that we've submitted to the city council basically have been turned down. And so their recommendation was not to proceed to get the zoning, that we would probably get turned down. And they wanted to wait until after the comprehensive rezoning was completed, which is earmarked in 2017, which is next year. So obviously the developers wanted to have a project that they could develop right away. So that deal went sideways. So our next event was to sit down with Worldview and counsel them in terms of, you know, what's the value of the property as is. You know, if somebody buys it with the R5 zone, basically takes their chances that they could get it rezoned, or they have a conditional use permit for group living. So we could find a buyer basically that would fit into that group living. And that was something that, you know, most nonprofits basically probably don't have the capital to, you know, cash them out on something like this. So we decided to reprice the property. So we came back at, I think it was 2004, at $2,400,000. It was originally priced at $2,700,000. And at that point, we actually had a 1031 buyer that was really excited about it. He said he could wait out the zoning. He could do some things with the property until the zoning got handled and whatnot. The only problem is he couldn't, as it turned out, he couldn't put enough money into the deal without doing the rehab on the property, and he couldn't do the rehab until he got the zoning. So after 3 months of basically going through due diligence, he backed out. So we thought, well, let's go ahead and put it back on the market again. Maybe we can find that, you know, diamond in the rough. Maybe it's a group living. Maybe it's somebody that, you know, is well capitalized that could wait it out. So we actually went back to our original party, and the original party said, well, I'll tell you what, at that price, and they were a little bit under $2,400,000, we'll roll the dice. We'll take a chance that we can get the rezoning done and come back in and do the deal. Well, to backtrack a little bit, this building was formerly a hospital. It was a nurse's dormitory for Portland Adventist Hospital. And right across the street on Yamhill was the main hospital. And you probably know where Portland Adventist relocated. They're off of 205 over in Southeast. That property was purchased by a company called Marquis, and they do post-operative care. And they owned that building, and we're only using about half of it. So one of the ideas that we broached with them the first time, look, why don't we go approach Marquis and see if they'd be willing to sell? And if they would, then you could dovetail both projects and redevelop them both at the same time. Well, they were somewhat receptive to that. But the second time around, when they came back, they said, okay, we'll take a run at this. We'll do this with the zoning in place, but we also want to buy the Marquis building. So Craig and I basically approached Marquis, had several meetings with Marquis. They have the same zoning. It's an R5 zone, but that was also earmarked to go R2. And after probably 2 months of negotiating with them, we submitted an LOI to Marquis. Marquis came back and basically fine-tuned it a little bit, and we went under contract for Marquis for $6 million. So the Marquee property was really, it fit right into a 1031 need that this buyer had. And so at that point, they were committed to the Marquee deal. This deal was pretty much assured that they were going to close it because they wanted to have both deals under contract. And so that was kind of the whole thing in a nutshell. It was, you know, one thing I'd like to add on this. Craig and I, and I really want to compliment Craig, talk about a teammate. This guy is unbelievable. I think Craig and I, you know, we're partners in Northwest Equities, and we worked on a few things before, but we developed a relationship with both the buyer and the seller on this property that I think really made this whole thing happen. Because we had many meetings, everything was fully transparent. Every time we had a hurdle to cross, basically the buyer was very appreciative of worldviews, you know, business and all that sort of thing. And it was just fun to work on. Great people, and the persistence that we had. Basically, this deal was not going to not close. They had to close this deal, and we were going to make it happen. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have another transaction to feature here. Ryan?
All right, good afternoon. Ryan Emery with SVN. So the transaction that I submitted for Transaction of the Year is located down in Medford, Oregon. This is a grocery-anchored shopping center on the very west side of town. It's an Albertsons anchored deal with retail pads out front. This is the first time I've ever worked on a transaction that had kind of three unique ownership components. So a lot of people have heard about fee simple, a lot of people have heard about leasehold, and a lot of people have heard about ground leases. This is the first time I've had all three wrapped into a single transaction. So let me just touch on something real fast. So Albertsons was a ground lease to Albertsons. The owners own the dirt.
Can't hear you, Ryan.
Okay. So Albertsons owned their building. The people we were buying the property from owned the dirt. The two green parcels here, we had leasehold rights in this. So we were leasing from the woman that owned the dirt. And then the remaining pads were all fee simple. Created some interesting complexities for a couple different things. Number one, lenders don't like leasehold. They don't like ground lease. It became more problematic with lending than we ever anticipated. The property, this property, I'll tell you a little bit more background. So I reached out to the owner of this asset in about September of 2015. And this is a gentleman I've been speaking with for probably the last 10 years. He's never shown any interest in doing anything, but it's one of these things you just keep on, you know, the constant communication, making sure he's aware that you've got people you're working with that like his property. And he finally said, actually, I just listed my Jackson Creek Center. I said, fantastic. I haven't seen this on the market. Where can I find the information? And he put me in touch with his two agents. One of them was a partner in the deal, and the other one was a commercial agent, Sam Gressett, down in Medford. So I reached out to those two gentlemen, and they shared with me the marketing package. And this property was on the market with a $6.2 million ask price, representing, with their underwriting, an 8% cap rate. Now, you will all know an 8% cap rate for a grocery anchor deal is something you do not encounter very often. So I said, we need to write an offer, and we need to write an offer now. So I reached out to a client of mine that I've done some other transactions with, told him about the deal, and he said, this is right up my alley. I like it. It's got a great grocery anchor. It's got a number of components that just made a lot of sense. So on the 27th, so 2 days after I found out about the property, we wrote a full price offer on the property. Now, one thing that I'll touch on, and I thought this was a kind of a creative way of writing up an offer, because as you know, every broker underwrites a little bit differently. So the NOI is something you always have to question a little bit. How real are these numbers? The brokers often will represent, hey, they're all triple net leases, there's no leakage whatsoever, and you know that in most cases that's not the case. Whether it's management's capped or there's a max contribution where they will not pay for XYZ. There's always something. So with that knowledge that that's probably what we encounter, we wrote this up, and I'll describe my language specifically. So I said, we're going to write up a purchase price saying the purchase price for the property shall be the lesser of $6,200,000 or the calculation of an 8% capitalization rate on an in-place NOI using commercially reasonable assumptions. So I threw that in there thinking, okay, that's probably a gimme that they're going to say, yeah, right. The seller sat on our offer for a couple days, and they said, yep, we're okay with that. We believe our underwriting. We think that we're fine, $6.2 million. We go into contract. So it's a pretty standard deal, 30 days of due diligence, 60 days for financing, but we had to go through all of our physical inspections. We had to go through the underwriting of all the leases, going through the financial analysis in that 30-day window. So as soon as I got the due diligence, I'm a bit of an anal retentive analyst by nature, so I was going through, and again, sometimes more than I should as a broker, going through all of the complex analysis, going through all the leases, abstracting them, and recognizing, oh crap, we've got more problems than I thought. There was tremendous leakage. The NOI that they had shared with us was dramatically different than the in-place reality of NOI, to the tune of about $65,000. Now, when you look at a $65,000 impact on NOI, and you divide that by an 8% cap rate, you've got an $800,000 problem on your hands. That's not a fun request to send off to a seller saying, we really are happy we're in contract, we want to work with you, however, we need a concession of $800,000. So I told that to my client. I said, we've got a problem here. This is probably going to die, but let me give this a fighting chance, and let me put together a very thorough analysis where I'm utilizing the information they've shared with us, their P&Ls, their CAM reconciliation statements, to help highlight that what they've represented is dramatically different than the original market material. And my client was like, if you want to waste your time, go for it. So I seriously probably spent a day and a half crafting about a 7-page letter with another 35 pages of exhibits, identifying here are the problems you have, line item by line item, comparing budget, comparing actuals, comparing the way that this property is performing. And it was, oh gosh, November of last year. And I was still on the board with CCIM, and we were at our annual board conference, and I told the guys, I'm like, yeah, I've got this deal that's just about to go, it's gonna die on the table. I'm like, what are you doing? I said, well, here's this letter, and the exhibits are like, yeah, you're not getting that. I think Mark was even, because Mark lives down in Medford, he's like, yeah, that's gonna go over like a pound of bricks. So we submitted this to the seller, and they were quiet for a couple days, not too surprising. And they finally came back and they said, Ryan, we've tried poking holes in what you come up with, and you're right. Wow. So they agreed to an $815,000 concession price. So at that point in time, I'm like, this deal is gold. Take this to the finish line, that cash is in the bank. Well, that's when my client decided to start spending a little more time on financing. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I've talked to several lenders in this room that looked at me and said, Medford? Oh, and there's a ground lease? Oh yeah, no, that's not gonna be something we can work on. So this buyer worked with several different loan companies that each one of them provided him pretty unattractive terms that just weren't going to work for him. The loan to value was wrong, and he's like, Ryan, I think this thing's dying on the vine. And during that time, he was kind of getting a little bit nervous about Medford, recognizing it's a tertiary market. What's my exit strategy on this asset? And I'm just hitting my head against the wall saying, we've had so much progress. We have to get this thing to the finish line. And ultimately, this buyer and his investor said, yeah, we decided to kind of change our tune. We're going to try to focus in more primary markets, even if they're at lower cap rates. So we're going to terminate. I said, you've got to be kidding me. You don't find 8-cap grocery-anchored shopping centers. I mean, in the Albertsons, I'll touch on the Albertsons. Again, this is a ground lease to Albertsons. Their rents were $3.54 a square foot, triple net. You can replace that rent. If Albertsons disappears, I guarantee the Thunderbird Market, who's just south of here, we could convince them to go across the street and probably double the rents, because their building is a turd and this thing is beautiful. Lenders didn't want to hear about it. Lenders did not want to hear about it. The lease with Albertsons went through with their primary term into 2019. So it was a short-term lease. That was the other challenge. So we want a 10-year money. Lenders don't want to give you 10-year money when you don't have a commitment from your anchor for that same period of time. So I was scratching my head thinking, okay, how can I keep this thing alive? How can I control this asset? It's not something I've listed. It's another broker's deal, and they're prepared to go back to market now at this lower price that I've explained to them, and it's going to be something that somebody else just takes out. So I was kind of sitting there now and thinking, what are my different options? And I said, we need to continue to control this thing. You've got some extension rights inside your contract that allow you for like a 30-day extension for your due diligence and a couple different other things. I said, we need to exercise all of those. We need as much time as possible. What we're going to do is we're going to find somebody to assign this to. He's like, so, okay, I can probably make a little bit of money on the assignment as well. So we then both started actively trying to find other investors that could make sense of this asset. And it fell dead, to a few different investors where it's like, nope, it's Medford, no, it's got, this weird ground lease issue. And we were told by the owner, and I'll get into more detail here in a minute, but these green pads you see out here, they're owned by a woman. The way it was described to us by the seller was a very nice little old lady who, at some point in time, you can buy those from her estate. So it should not be a problem. We're like, all right, we're just going to table that. Let's go over the bigger issues first. Well, we finally did find a buyer that said they'd step into their shoes. It was on the 24th of December, so the day before Christmas. We found a group out of California that had an exchange need that this was going to work perfectly for. And we thought, all right, cross our fingers. We've got through December 30th before our extensions all die. On December 30th, the buyer flew up from California, toured the property. I couldn't make it to the tour, so one of the listing agents actually toured the buyer. And he said, no, I think we can make sense of this deal, and agreed to step in and take on the assignment. At that point in time, we kind of verbally agreed to it, but we didn't have any type of formal agreement on the table with the seller saying they'd allow us a little bit more time. We had to go $100,000 non-refundable by the 31st, which we weren't going to be able to do. So we asked for another extension. We need through January 5th. So they said, okay, fine, we're going to give you a little bit more time. We'll give you through January 5th. January 5th, they finally agreed to step in to the shoes, say, we'll go non-refundable right now. They agreed with our underwriting, thought they were getting this at a great value. But they said, I think the seller is more motivated than we think. Let's go for one more squeeze. Of course. So we told them, we're prepared to go non-refundable, $100,000 released to you immediately. We need another $200,000. So down to $5,085,000. And the thing that we did to get them to agree to that, the owner, the developer, had interest in a couple of different businesses. His daughter ran a resale store for furniture, and she was a tenant in the center with a short-term lease. And we'd asked them to sign a new 5-year extension. And I said, okay, what if we take that 5-year extension off the table? Instead of you guaranteeing that, we're not going to ask for your guarantee, but we need this concession of the $200,000. So the seller finally said, great, if I'm not on the hook for my kids, great. That's fine, let's do this. So we agreed to the $5,085,000. So then he started going through the financing process, and this guy, very California attitude. There's nothing he can't overcome. Everybody wants to lend to me. I'm a big deal. Nobody's going to turn me down. Well, guess what? It's Medford, Oregon. You've got a short-term lease with Albertsons, and Albertsons didn't report sales. So that's the other challenge. You don't know how they're doing. So we ended up, to try to get lenders more comfortable, we ended up spending about $1,500 for a report called a Market and Competitive Store Analysis Report put together by Nielsen Company. And this is a report that identifies how grocers are doing based on what they're purchasing. So they can track and figure out what that store is doing on annual sales. So we came back and we found out that this store was doing about a little north of $300 a square foot. And it's not great, but it's not shabby. And again, this is a big format store. Lenders liked seeing that, but it still wasn't something that got them really excited. So this guy went to his loan brokers and was chasing all sorts of deals. I said, why don't you go back to the lender that has the debt on the property? And like, God, no, I've got other relationships. We're going to do a condo, we're going to get life company money. This is not an issue. Well, guess what? After hiring a loan broker, guess who they went back to? The company that had the debt on it originally. So Darcy Nordby at Banner Bank ended up doing the loan on this property. Touching on, so again, making great progress. We're going to close this deal. They said, Ryan, I'd really like to control this whole thing. I want to own the dirt underneath the parking lot and under that pad as well. So this little old lady, we'd like to speak with her. I said, okay, we haven't really reached out to her yet. We've got another 85 years for the ground lease. So it's not pressing, but let's have the conversation. Holy cow, she was a bear. She's a retired attorney that probably has $400 million in real estate herself and didn't give a shit about us. So I hit my head against the wall so many times trying to deal with this nice little old lady who you could hardly track down because she was in Palm Beach, then she was back in California, then she was in Hawaii. So we ended up finally getting a hold of her attorney, and then the buyer's attorney was trying to work with them directly, and she saw this as a great opportunity to renegotiate her ground lease. Not the terms in terms of the rent, but she did not feel that she was secured well enough. There was no personal guarantee. We told her, you're protected by the everything on top of your improvements. The building, if we stop paying you, you can put a fence around Albertson's parking lot, and guess what happens to us? We're hosed. So you're completely protected. Nope. She didn't care for that as a guarantee. She wanted somebody to have their name on the dotted line saying, we are personally responsible. So this huge company, the president of the company personally guaranteed. He agreed to the modification of the terms. We spent 45 days arguing with her and kept on to get extensions because the seller could not produce an estoppel for the underlying ground lease. So again, a lot of learning experiences on this one. We finally did get the thing closed, and it was a celebration. I mean, I was so pleased to have this one gone and behind me. But again, it was something that was a great transaction, learned a lot, and again, had a chance to work with several of the people here in this audience, talking to lenders and trying to overcome, challenges in this transaction. So thank you for listening, and